In today's video, I will be showing you how to create this James Bond inspired spy laser watch effect just like this.
Watch is ready, Mr. Bond. Laser cut selected. Loading.
To create this effect, you don't need any expensive plugins, you just need Adobe After Effects, and I will walk you through everything step by step. If you want to follow along with this tutorial using the exact same footage as me, you can download my project files completely for free, including a filming checklist with a link in the description below. And before we jump into the tutorial, I wanted to give you something that will drastically improve your videos. I created this free Hollywood VFX bundle with over 100 high-quality assets that you can use in your projects and even commercially. You can download it completely for free with the link in the description below as well. All right, let's jump into Adobe After Effects and get started. All right, so here we are in Adobe After Effects. I have my footage right here, and what I will do is drag and drop this into a new composition. I recorded this on my phone, and actually it was in a car holder, and the car holder was in my mouth to act like a POV shot. So this was my setup. This is what I have. So right here, I am working in full resolution, and I'm just reviewing my shot. I have this dark watch up front. I'm twisting it, and I'm just imagining going through a menu, selecting the laser cut, and then I point it to the wall, and I start cutting in this electrical metal door, and I'm going to leave a burn mark right here. So there are a few things that we need to do. The first thing is we need track data from the wall. So we need to track our wall. Then we also need to track our watch because the laser is going to hit our wall here. Okay, so let's start with tracking our wall here. So what I will do is go to the end of my clip and I will add Mocha AE. I'm now hitting Control Spacebar using the effects console here. If you don't have that, you can go over to effects and presets. It works basically the same, just faster. So you can search your effects here if you don't see that window, effects and presets. So I'm going to use effects console for this. So I'm going to search the effect Mocha AE, and I'm going to apply that to my layer and then click on the Mocha logo. So once in Mocha, I'm going to click on the X-Spline tool, and I'm just going to make a selection just like this, making sure that I have enough detail to track this part, and then right click once you're done. You can maybe adjust a few points if you want. Just want to kind of match the perspective a little bit just to get an idea. And then check perspective and then track it backwards because we're at the end of our clip here, and track it backward. Okay, we can actually stop it once I'm not pointing towards the wall because we only need the data while we're affecting the wall, and there is nothing being affected before we actually point a laser towards it. So we can close Mocha right now and just save everything. So now we're going to right click and create a new null object, and we're going to call this track wall. And then we're going to our footage, go to track data, open that up, create track data, then go to transform and select transform, move it to layer to export to track wall, and then hit apply. And now you should see, if we go to the position where it's pointing at the wall, that this null should actually stick to a specific position on our wall. We can always test this out by just creating a new text or going to the text tool, just write test, and then just parent this to the track wall, and then just do a little preview by playing this and seeing if everything is sticking well to the wall here. So this looks good for now, so we can delete our test here. And I'm going to create two more nulls. So one is going to be start, and I'm going to create another null, and the other one is going to be end. And this is going to be our start and end point of the laser. So one start point, we don't need to move it, but it's going to be here, just to give you an idea. And the other one is going to point at the wall and then making the circle. We need that information. So for that, in order for this to work, we need tracking information of the watch. So what I will go and do is go to the end of my clip here. And actually we do have a lot of motion blur. So what I'll do is just page up once, page up twice, and then just press N on the keyboard, right click, trim comp to work area, and just so we don't really need those last 2 keyframes. If you do, you can make it work as well, but why make it harder right now? So go over to the tracker window. If you don't see that window, tracker, and then go to track motion, and we're going to click here in the empty space and then move this over to our watch. And we can actually zoom out a little bit and bring this to your watch. And then find a place that actually has a lot of contrast, like this one right here, and maybe make the search field a little bit bigger so we're always sure it's looking in the right area. And with that done, we can analyze backwards, and this should actually work perfectly. So again, let it go through until we use the laser. So once I pull away my arm, we don't need the tracking information anymore. If you don't see it anymore, I'm just going to hit pause here. Make sure that the track continues well, and actually it did lose it here. So I'm going to make sure it doesn't lose it. I'm going to see where it loses it. No, it doesn't. So until here, so we have the tracking data where I'm pointing at the wall, perfect. Now what we will do is go to the beginning of your of the timeline, go to edit target, and now we're going to choose start, click OK, and then click apply. Make sure that the time indicator is at the beginning of your layer, and then click OK. Now it's going to apply this to the start. So if you press U on the keyboard, you will reveal the keyframes right here. So we can trim this if you want up until here. Same for the track wall actually, just so you know where it kind of starts. And so now we should have a start null that is sticking to the beginning of my watch. Next, I'm going to right click new and create a new solid, and this is going to be our laser. So I'm going to create my first laser, make comp size, make it black, click OK, click OK. And then next, I'm going to choose the effect beam. Going to select this one, set the length to 100%, set the interior color to a light red, and then the outer color to a bright red, just like this. You could play with the start size and with the end size, maybe even thinner. That way it seems like it's going into depth, which is pretty cool. And then for the start point, so what we want to do is press P on the keyboard for both the end and start, one selected. So if you press P, it's going to reveal the position properties here, and that's what we need. Now for the laser, I'm going to hold Alt and click on the stopwatch for the start point. And I'm going to use this pick whip tool and drag this to the start position. And now if we release that, it's going to stick to that null that we just created. Now we're going to do the same thing for the endpoint. Alt click on the stopwatch for that and then drag this to the position of the endpoint. And now we have our laser intact, so that's great. Now we have this. The only thing that we will see is that, yeah, the start point isn't actually where it's supposed to be. I want it to actually get out of the side here. I want another null that makes me control where the start actually is, but follows the tracking information of the start. So to do that, I'm going to create a start control, and I'm going to create a new null, call it start control. And now I'm going to parent this start to this start. And so this null, I can now bring it to this side. And if we're going to play the video, you will see that it sticks to that side. So it's always staying, it's going to look at the tracking data of the first null. So that's great and all. The only problem that we have is if we change the expression here, press E twice on the keyboard for the start and move it to the start control, and actually to the position of the start control. So press P on the keyboard to reveal the position of the start control. And if we replace this, it won't work. And that's because this position is actually very low, because it's actually looking at the position of the start. So it doesn't have the actual position value of where it is in our canvas. And that's where we need to change this expression a little bit. I've already prepared it for you, so you can just take it from the description below here. But this is the expression. This com.layer And then it's important that you are using the correct name of your layer. And so the name here is start. We just need to change it to start control. And also for this one to start control. And there we go. And now it should actually match this null, but correctly. We can even move it, animate it, and it's going to stick through this the entire way, which is great. And the reason we had to do this is because we don't have a tracking point that has enough contrast, just like this time indicator right here. So I tracked this to then use this information to affect this position because it's close enough to not show too much parallax right there. Do you find these tutorials helpful, but you still feel like you're missing the big picture? I created the Next Level Editing University to give you the exact blueprint you need in order to create awesome videos, from start to finish without feeling overwhelmed. Link in the description below. So now what I will do is right click new, and I'm going to create a hole. So I'm going to create a solid and call it hole. And then I'm going to choose my mask tool and create a circle somewhere around here where I want it to be in the wall. And then I can parent this link to the tracked wall. And now it's going to move along with our wall and its position. And now we can open up this mask and click on the mask path and Control C to copy this information of the mask path. And then go to the end position here and click on the attribute for the position. So press P on the keyboard if you don't see that, click on position and then Control V to paste it. And what that will do is paste the information of the mask as a position animation. So that's great. Right now you can see that also all the keyframes are highlighted. So before we do anything, I actually want to move it just a little bit and try to cover over our hole that we just created. And also make sure that this end position is using the track information of the wall. Now we only have one problem. Once we do that, again, we lose our point. So we'll have to do the same thing that we did for our other laser. So if you go back to the laser, press E twice on the keyboard, copy this first code, Control C, and paste it here, and just change this to end and end. So it's looking at the end null here, and that's going to snap it back into place. There we go. Because now we're using the end, but it's looking at the position of the track wall. So it doesn't have its own value, and that's why we need to work around it this way. Now, of course, I want to make this entire animation a lot faster. I really want it to be a fast laser, kind of like. Select all of these keyframes and then go to the beginning. Make sure that you're on the first keyframe here. Alt and click and drag on the last one and drag it in. And you will see that we're affecting all of these. You can make it slower, faster. So I'm making it a lot faster. Then zoom in a little bit, copy these keyframes, Control C, go to the end, Control V, Control V. Do it a few times and then copy all of these, Control C, Control V, and that way it's going a little bit faster. Go to the last keyframe and just do this as long as you want the hole to be cutting for. And now I'm just going to change my resolution here to a lower value so we can preview faster. We can see that we have a laser cutting in the wall here. And it's going pretty fast. Okay, so right here we can remove that. We can actually go to the layer of the laser. And if you want, you can just trim it here because lasers go so fast, or you can do the retraction animation. But like this, it also kind of works, you know? And then for the laser, we also want to enable motion blur. So that way it looks a little bit more realistic. If you don't see that, toggle the switches by clicking on this button here. Then also we want to move the hole before the laser. So it actually, when the laser is in perspective, that you can see it over the hole. And that's working pretty well. So now we can duplicate our hole and call this burn marks. This is going to be like the burn that the laser is creating on the edges. So what I will do is press M on the keyboard and set it to none for the mask. Next on this solid, I'm going to add the effect stroke. And I'm going to choose this mask to look for the stroke, and then untransparent. If we solo this layer for now, you should be able to see a stroke effect. There we go. Make it as thick as you'd like. We can add a little bit of softness to it, so maybe less hardness. And then add a roughen edges effect to that. And maybe add the complexity and maybe lower the border a little bit. And if we click here, you're going to remove the masks and shapes so you can truly look at things. Or what you can also do is hold Ctrl Shift H, I guess, and that's going to remove everything. But don't forget to revert it with Ctrl Shift H, otherwise you're going to think After Effects is broken. So like this, you can truly see what's going on, and maybe even change it back to full resolution for these type of things, because you can see it's a whole lot. It's a completely different experience once you change resolutions. So like maybe something like this. You can also scale it down to have smaller details, something like that. And then add a fractal noise in and go to transform and scale this down quite a bit, so we have a little bit of detail in there. Maybe hold Alt and click on the stopwatch for evolution and write time times 250. That's going to give it a animation over time where the fractal is just like playing a little bit, like you still have some smoldering in here. Next, we want to add a tint effect and make this a orange bright tone, something that looks like smoldering metal, I guess. And then next we can add the perfect glow effect to give it some glow. You can also toggle the switches and turn this into an additive mode. And play a little bit with the settings here until you get something that you like. And I just want to check one thing. It's on a transparent layer, and therefore the glow looks a little bit, ugly. And to fix that, we are going to add a solid composite effect and turn this into a black color and bring this before our glow. That's going to change it and give it a more rich glow effect. Now we can play a little bit more with the intensity here. And maybe I do want to add another tint effect behind this and just lower the value so it's a little bit less saturated. Something like that. And if you want to really blend it in with the scene, we're going to add a fast blur, and you're going to look at your scene. We can see that this is not sharp. So we're going to try and match that. So maybe something like 2 or maybe 3. I think 2 works for this one. And then copy the fast box blur and also paste it on the hole. So we have the edges of the hole with it. Press F on the keyboard. Maybe give it some feather of 5 pixels. So the edges of the hole are also not perfect. Maybe even 15. Let's see what that does. And if you want, you can also add the roughen effect on this one. Change the scale to like 25. Complexity to like 10. And then maybe the sharpness to 0.4 or 0.3. Something like that. And then we have before and after, just adding a little bit of detail in there, and maybe the fast box blur after that, making sure it blends in even more after that. So now we have this blackness in the hole. What you can do is import an image of what the inside could be, and also track that to the wall. Or what you could do is just change the color a little bit. Maybe you want to add a gradient ramp for now to this, and we can give it some kind of color from the environment here, but maybe a little bit brighter. And maybe this point should be up here, and this point should be up here. And of course, this is way too bright and we don't see anything. Ctrl Shift H, there we go. And let's see if we can make it work. Shadow should be on that side. Looks a little bit more like an inside of something. We can fine tune it later. Let's focus on our laser now. So for the laser, I'm also going to change this to an additive mode. Also, I'm going to add a solid composite effect here and change it to black. I'm also going to add the perfect glow to this here and set it to 10 in radius and just increase the intensity. It's pretty intense. Well, this is way too intense. Maybe lower the threshold also, so we get it more intense. You can also add the fast box blur here and set it to like a 2. So we blur it a little bit. And maybe you want to make it a lot thinner, so maybe set the thickness to 2, 0.5. And maybe the blur is too intense, so set it to 1. And this is starting to look better. You can also press T on the keyboard, lower the opacity just a little bit. Laser is never that bright really on those points. And what we can also do is create a new solid and call this kind of haze smoke effects. And then now we're going to add a fractal noise here and change this to a dynamic progressive, maybe even invert it, and go to transform, scale it just a little bit. Alt click on the stopwatch for the evolution time times 250 to get some animation going. And then we're going to use this haze smoke and track it to the track wall. And now toggle the switches until you see this track matte option. And for the laser, we're going to pick this haze smoke to track matte 2. And then click on this icon once, so we're using the Luma matte instead of the Alpha matte. And now you can click between these, but you will see the difference between nothing and with the effect. It's like it's taking out a little bit of the laser. When laser is kind of shining through smoke, you will also see this kind of effect, and that sells the laser effect just a little bit more. Next, I'm going to create a new composition. I'm just going to give it a width of 500 and a height of 500 and call it just lens flare and click OK. Then right click new, and we're going to create a new solid layer and call it flare. Now I'm going to add the lens flare effect that is standard in Adobe After Effects. To be honest, I did use optical flares for my final result, but I didn't want to use any plugins for this video. So I'm going to show you how I do it with lens flare from After Effects. So set it to 250 and 250 to be in dead center. Change the lens type to 105 millimeter prime. Then go to the curves effect and remove a lot of the contrast here and create like a little bit of an S. Just make sure that you're not kind of really cropping out any blacks. Then add a fast box blur to give it a little bit of blur here. Soft but present. Maybe a little bit less of the contrast here. Just want to make sure that towards the edges we're not really working with too much. Something like that. And what you can do is also in the red color, we can increase the red here. And quite a bit. And so like this, we're creating our own lens flare here. And if we go back to our footage and then import this lens flare, we can place it here at the beginning of our watch and then change the blending mode to add. Of course, we have to press S on the keyboard and set it to something like 10, very, very small. And then zoom in here, place it wherever you want, and then parent that to the start control. Maybe even set it to screen. See if that's a better ID. And you can also press T on the keyboard and hold Alt, click on the stopwatch. And now we're going to write an expression wiggle, open parentheses like 10 times a second, comma. We're going to change it with a value of 50. So now it's going to also flicker a little bit, and we have a little bit of a really active laser. Then we're going to duplicate this lens flare, and this time we're going to parent it to the end here of our null. So once you've selected the end, all we need to do is move this over to the end position. And there we go, it's following along. We can toggle the switches and also enable motion blur for this. And if you want, you can duplicate it to make it more intense. If you truly want to see something here, duplicate it a few times and maybe even change the mode to add here so we can clearly see our laser being active. And let's do a small preview of what we have so far. So I'm also going to move this over just a little bit like that. Boom. And also lower the scale maybe to 5 for all of these. A little bit smaller because it's farther away. Not sure what's going on here. So we're starting the track here. So I'm just going to move the lens flares up until here and then trim these clips here. And actually everything that we have, we can trim it up until here. And so of course we don't want our hole to be visible from the beginning. So what I will do is duplicate my original footage bring it over the hole and use the track mat on the hole to just show my original footage, and then duplicate the hole once. And this is going to be the hole inside, let's say. And so like this, we have nothing, it's just cutting. And then maybe somewhere here, the laser stops. So I just duplicated my laser just a few times, just to make it more intense. So right here, everything stops. So from here, we want to remove all the lens flares. The haze smoke as well, we don't need it. And then we want to focus a few frames later on this footage right here. We're going to Ctrl-Shift-D to split it, right-click, time, and then freeze this frame. Press P on the keyboard, click on the stopwatch, move a few frames further, and just bring this down. And so like this, it feels like it's dropping out. The only problem here, I'm going to delete our keyframe, is that our hole also needs to be parented to our laser watch, or our laser watch undo. And so now we have this parented to the hole. So for the hole, I'm going to press P on the keyboard, click on the stopwatch here, and move a few frames forward, and then just bring this out like it's just sliding down through the inside. And like this, it's kind of opening. You can of course do it however you would like. Give it some motion blur while in movement. We get a more realistic look here. And if you want it to be a little bit faster, just move these keyframes. And now we look on the inside. If you want to show something on the inside, just bring in a clip, whatever clip it would be. I'm just going to take the original one, bring it over the whole inside, and just parent it to this whole inside. And let's say we want to scale this. And like this, you can see something on the inside here, and then just make sure that this is also tracked to the track wall. And like this, you would show an interior in your hole, but I'm not going to do that for this purpose, because we already just have like a black inside, like a void, which is fine for me. And so the last thing that I also did was in the intro on the watch, while I'm rotating here on the dial, I'm actually changing a menu inside. So how I've created that menu, let's split our original footage here, Ctrl-Shift-D. Click on this footage layer, pre-compose, leave all the attributes, call it just footage. Open it up by double clicking, so we can just focus on our menu here. And let's focus on this clip here. So I'm going to apply the mocha effect as well. Delete the first one, we don't need it. Well, you could have also used that one. Make sure we go back to full resolution here and click on the logo for mocha. And then find a position where I'm looking at the watch in a clear way, just like that right here. Click on the X-Spline tool and make a circle. Like that, right click, Ctrl-A to select everything, and then make that perfect circle by just dragging in these points. And then again, readjusting until you have that circle that you want. Something like that. And then click on perspective as well. And then track it backward. And then go back to this position where we started it, and then track it forward. Okay, so once you've done that, we can close this. and then click OK. You can also create a new null object and call this watch face track, and then track data, create track data, transform, watch face track, apply. And then go to your project and import one of these Hollywood HUD circles. And then scale it however you would like. Find a position where you clearly can see the watch here. Okay. Place this wherever you would like. Change the blending mode to an additive maybe. Maybe something like that, and then just track it to the watch face track. Of course, also enable motion blur for this layer. Let's see if this is tracking well into position. So that's perfect. So from here, we can scale it down more and reposition it to make sure it looks all right. You can duplicate it again, maybe offset it a little bit, make it bigger. So we have a different animation here. And we can also add the other circle if you want. What you can also do is delete this, duplicate one, and then click on this, Alt, click and drag it here. So it's already in the right position. That might be useful. And maybe something like that. And we can also press T on the keyboard, play with opacities if you're not satisfied with something. And also add these blur effects, maybe just like 1 pixel of blur to integrate it a little bit better with your scene. So once you're satisfied, we can now create a text and call this, for example, invisibility or just invisible with all caps. And then I'm going to turn this into 3D layer, and then I want to place it in a way that it feels like it belongs on the watch. Place it somewhere on the watch. A small rotation here, and then also parent this to the watch face and just give it a different color. So we're just going to add a fill, or go to the text fill here and change it to a different face color. Something like that. And then just start this text whenever I reach closer. Boom, or there we have it. Or maybe the first time that I twist it. I also had the logo of James Bond, like the intro animation. Basically, I did it the same thing, but I cannot share it due to copyrights. I don't own that logo. But yeah, you can do it with any logo that you would like. Just track it into position here. So maybe here is going to be our text, and boom, we have invisibility, and then just set it to quarter. Play your clip, see how you twist your watch. So maybe first, boom, we activated it. When do we have a second twist? Right here. And then we just shift this and we change it, and then you would say laser cut in all caps, for example. And I'm not sure if I actually, yeah, there. And I leave it. So maybe we toggle it off with a little glitch where it flickers. And if you then want the original watch to be on top of the effects, we can drag the original clip all up on top, use the extract effect, and remove parts of the white until you're satisfied here. And I'm actually doing it the wrong way. It's the black I have to remove. And there we go. And that way it looks a little bit more integrated into the watch, as you can see. And of course, again, we can select all of these clips here together with the null that we parented it to. Control-Shift-C, move all the attributes and call this like watch holo, click OK. And then toggle the switches and change it to add a fast box blur of 1%. So fits a little bit more into the scene. Add maybe a solid composite effect if you want to make everything black here. And then add the perfect glow effect to give it some final glow on top of this text, which looks really sleek. I really like this. So like this, you would go through the menu, of course, take your time, change it, add in some animations. I'm giving you the basic principles here of the entire effect, but I think you do get the idea of the entire result. So then if we preview it, we're going through the menu. We have this animation of our HUD elements that we tracked onto the watch. And then we have the menu of the text that we're selecting of the function that we're going to be using of the watch. And then we have the laser shooting towards the wall, burning a laser circle, and then the wall opens. So one last detail that I did was creating the sparks. I created a new solid and call it sparks. And add particle world effect, CC particle world. Set the particle to faded sphere. Set the bird size to 0.05, 0.0 or maybe 0.03, 0.02 in the dead size. We're going to change the colors to, let's say, a little bit more orange toned sparks. The birth rate at 2 is okay. Set the longevity to 4 or 0.4. And then for the producer here, we want to parent the position here. Also for this, I have the code prepared. So alt click on the position here, paste it. And then alt click here and paste the other part. And if we're going to solo this, move it over to the moment it's supposed to start. We can see it right here. We can increase or we can lower the longevity to 0.2. Physics, maybe velocity of 3. Gravity of 1. And enable the motion blur here. And maybe increase bird size, change the resolution to full so we can clearly see what we're doing here. And like this, you're going to create some sparks that fly off while we're doing, changing it to blending mode add. So while we're making the circle, we have our sparks here. If you want, of course, you can add the solid composite effect here as well. Also the blur effects, also the glow. This is something that you will have to repeat doing each time that you're adding something to your layer. So perfect glow, set it to 10. Lower the threshold here and maybe increase the intensity so we create some really bright sparks. And then change the blending mode to add for the layer. Now we have some sparks also on our circle, finalizing our effect.
Your watch is ready, Mr. Bond. Laser cut selected. Loading.
So what do you think of this effect? And also do let me know what you would like to see next. Do leave a comment down below. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give this video a like. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to stay notified when I upload new videos. And apart from that, maybe check out this other video of mine and continue your journey in Adobe After Effects. Alright, until next time, create epic videos.